On the 19th of May, 1536, the skies over London were painted a gloomy grey. At the Tower of London, a scaffold had been prepared. The crowd held its breath as Anne Boleyn, the most powerful and most hated woman in England, stepped onto the wooden platform. She knelt, exposing her white neck to the sharp blade of the executioner summoned from Calais. In a split second, the head fell, ending the life of a queen. But was that death truly the end of the tragedy? Or was there a darker secret buried along with her headless body? For centuries, a terrifying rumor has haunted historians and Tudor enthusiasts alike. Did Henry VIII, a king driven mad by his desire for a son, ruthlessly execute his wife while she was pregnant with his own heir? If this is true, Henry was not just a wife killer, but a murderer of his own bloodline. Today, we are reopening this bloody case file, peeling back the layers of time to find the naked truth behind the theory. Was Anne Boleyn pregnant when she was executed? And be warned, the truth may be more devastating than any fiction. To understand the weight of this mystery, we must travel back to the dark days of early 1536. Anne Boleyn began the year with a great hope. She was pregnant. This wasn't just a child, it was a shield protecting her life against the king's growing coldness. Henry VIII, who had torn the church apart to marry her, was now eyeing Jane Seymour. Anne knew that only a prince could save her from the fate of Catherine of Aragon. But destiny dealt a fatal blow. At the end of January 1536, on the very day of Henry's ex-wife's funeral, Anne miscarried. It was a boy of about 15 weeks, physical pain mixed with utter despair. Henry entered the room, saw the lost son, and chillingly declared, "I see God will not give me male children." That sentence was not just disappointment, it was Anne's early death warrant. From that moment to her arrest on May 2nd, only 3 months passed. In that short, fearful window, could a miracle or a curse have happened to make her pregnant once again? The shocking theory that Anne died pregnant isn't just tavern gossip. It stems from a titan of Tudor historical literature, author Alison Weir. In her blockbuster 2001 book, Henry VIII, King and Court, she dropped a bombshell on the academic world. Weir asserted, Henry had every reason to be pleased with Anne in April 1536, for the evidence strongly suggests that she was pregnant again. Weir painted a haunting picture, a secret reconciliation, a newly formed life, and a king joyfully awaiting an heir. She cites Henry's rage at Ambassador Chapuis when his ability to sire sons was questioned. "Am I not a man like other men? You do not know all my secrets." Weir argued that Henry would never have boldly proclaimed a coming male heir unless he was certain of a pregnancy. It sounds logical, convincing, and incredibly cruel if Henry then decided to kill her. However, there is a fatal flaw in this argument that Weir accidentally overlooked a deadly mistake that turns the entire theory into smoke. Let's play detective and look closely at the smoking gun evidence Weir provided. It is a letter from Ambassador Chapuis to Emperor Charles V, reporting Henry's confidence about having a son. Weir assumes this conversation happened in April 1536, right before Anne's arrest. If true, Henry was indeed a cold-blooded monster for killing a pregnant wife. But the truth is a slap in the face to this theory. The original letter from Chapuis was actually written on April 15, 1533. Yes, you heard that right. A difference of 3 full years. In 1533, Anne was actually pregnant, but it was with the future Princess Elizabeth. Weir made a rookie error in dating, grafting Henry's confidence from 1533 onto the tragic context of 1536. In that letter, Chapuis even refers to Catherine of Aragon in the present tense, a woman who was deep in her grave by 1536. The first piece of evidence has collapsed completely, leaving a massive hole in this horror story. However, proponents of the pregnancy theory cling to one final lifeline. It is a letter Henry sent to his ambassador Richard Pate on the 25th of April 1536, just a week before Anne's arrest. In it, Henry wrote, "There is great likelihood and appearance that God will send us heirs male." Weir argues this is a direct reference to Anne being pregnant. Why would a cautious king declare this to Europe if he wasn't sure? But, once again, context is the key to unlocking the mystery. If you read only the snippet, you are deceived. When you read the full letter, the truth takes on a different color. It is political cunning, not family news. Henry was not announcing good news. He was reporting back the flattery of Ambassador Chapuis. Chapuis, trying to repair relations between England and Spain, had visited Henry and essentially said, "Your Majesty, I am sure you will have sons with Queen Anne, but just in case you don't, would you consider restoring the succession rights of Princess Mary?" Henry was merely repeating Chapuis's words in his letter to his own ambassador. It was diplomatic fluff, hollow courtesy, and absolutely not a medical announcement regarding Anne Boleyn's uterus. Now, let's ignore the letters and look into the mind of Henry VIII. This is the man who turned Europe upside down just to have a son. The desire for an heir was an obsession, a pathology, his driving force. Would such a man ever order the beheading of a wife carrying his greatest hope? The answer is no. No matter how much Henry hated Anne, no matter how much he lusted after Jane Seymour, he remained a king in need of a successor. If Anne were pregnant, even if it was just a suspicion, Henry would undoubtedly have postponed the execution. He could have locked her in the tower and waited 6 or 7 months. If she bore a son, the boy would be the heir, and Anne's fate might have changed divorce or imprisonment. If she bore a girl, beheading her then would not be too late. Killing a fetus that had the potential to be a son would be suicide for the Tudor dynasty. Henry was trying to protect. Henry's cruelty was real, but he was not stupid enough to destroy his own bloodline. If Henry didn't know Anne was pregnant, could she have hidden it? Imagine you are Anne Boleyn. You are imprisoned in the cold tower of London. You know you are going to die. You are surrounded by enemies. If you were pregnant, that would be the winning lottery ticket to save your life, or at least prolong it. English law at the time had a rule called pleading the belly. If a condemned woman was pregnant, she could not be executed until the baby was born. This was common knowledge, especially to a sharp mind like Anne. If there was any sign of life in her womb, Anne would have screamed it before the court, before Cromwell, and before the world. Her silence on this matter is the loudest proof. She said nothing because there was nothing to say. She knew she was empty, void of both power and the hope of a child. Those who believe the pregnancy theory still cling to a final argument: conspiracy. They claim that Anne's trial records were intentionally destroyed to cover up the truth about the pregnancy, that Henry wanted to erase all traces, that doctors were not allowed to examine her before death. It is true that Anne's trial records are sparse and many documents have vanished, but the reason is much simpler. It was a show trial. The charges of adultery, incest with her brother George, and plotting to kill the king were blatant fabrications. Henry and Cromwell wanted the records gone, not because of a fetus, but because of the ridiculous and baseless nature of the accusations. The fact that Anne wasn't examined is also easily explained. Henry hadn't slept with her for a long time, and she likely had her menstrual cycle during her imprisonment, the clearest biological proof of non-pregnancy, making any medical exam redundant. Time passed, and Anne Boleyn rested beneath the cold floor of the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula. In the 19th century, during Queen Victoria's reign, the chapel was excavated and restored. Anne's remains were found. The delicate bones, the severed neck, but absolutely no trace of fetal remains was found with her. Of course, if the pregnancy was in the very early stages, under 3 months, the bones might not have formed or could have dissolved over time. The absence of fetal bones is not absolute proof, but it is another piece of the puzzle reinforcing the full picture. Anne died alone. No unborn child accompanied her to the other side. The naked truth lies in the cold earth. There was only a wronged woman, no unborn king. Let's return to Alison Weir, the author who sparked this controversy. To her credit, in her later book, published in 2010, The Lady in the Tower, she quietly corrected her mistake. She redated the 1533 letter correctly and no longer pursued the theory that Anne was pregnant in 1536. This is an important lesson in history. No one, not even top experts, is infallible. History is not carved in stone. It is a continuous process of investigation, reopening files, and correcting misunderstandings. Weir remains a brilliant author who brought millions to history, but her error reminds us Always check the primary sources and never blindly trust anyone. So, what is the final verdict? No, Anne Boleyn was not pregnant when she stepped onto the scaffold. She died because she could not produce a son for Henry, not because she was carrying one. Anne's tragedy does not need fictional embellishments to be heartbreaking. The truth itself, an intelligent, powerful woman murdered by the husband who once madly loved her, simply for failing to provide a male heir, is horror story enough. History is sometimes crueler than we imagine, but it is also clear if we look deeply at the evidence. Anne Boleyn is gone, taking her unfinished dreams with her, but at least she did not have to endure the pain of carrying a child to the grave. What do you think about this historical case? Are there any other Tudor secrets yet to be brought to light? Leave a comment below so we can dissect them together. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next dark historical decoding. See you again on our haunting journeys into the past.